I'll introduce myself again for those of you who connected the last few minutes. I know most of you actually, and you probably recognize me. My name is Merav Biton. I'm the product training manager at Pepperi, and I give weekly training webinars, and we've started a Pepperi Academy product education webinar series, which you heard about through our emails. This is the first one, of course, on the Business Rule Configurator. Joining me are very experienced and helpful to have on this session, our project managers, Diogo Ceruya and Lior Goel. So I thank them very much for joining, and let's begin. Okay, you can ask questions at any time by typing them into the questions panel. And for this webinar, we'll answer questions as they come in about the specific examples, rather than waiting until the end to answer questions, because there are specific examples being shown and we don't want to wait till the end and you have forgotten already the details of the example. If it's a general question, we may leave it till the end. I have a couple of introductory slides to begin with. First of all, what is the Business Rule Configurator and do I need it? Up until now, you've been used to creating custom fields in Pepperi that are static custom fields that cannot have formulas or logic or your own business logic embedded in them. And that's exactly what the Business Rule Configurator allows you to do. You can embed your business logic that's calculated in real time and also offline, just like the whole app works offline, into your transactions. So you can run all kinds of checks on prices, on quantities, on discounts, and these checks can result in all kinds of logical queries and logical expressions and data queries that will result in values that will affect the grand total, the shipping costs, the quantities of the items, and so forth. So these are real-time calculated fields. In addition, you can also load your own data to be used in these calculations. So not only are you querying the Pepperi data that you've loaded into Pepperi, but you can load your own data in tables. This is a concept called user-defined tables. For those of you that are a little bit technical or a little programming experience, user-defined table, it's a standard term, and you can query those tables. So if you wanted to upload a list of all of your accounts with specific pricing per catalog name, or you wanted to upload a specific commission percentage per sales rep per customer, these are queries in the CSV files of data tables that you can load as just freestanding data. It's not Pepperi data, it's not Pepperi items or customers, it's your own data. All of these rule calculations, they run locally on the mobile device where the Pepperi app is running. So it's not something that you need to be online for or that runs only in the back office after an order is submitted. It runs locally on the device. It affects the transaction, the order. It can change prices. It can change items. It can modify things. And then when the order is submitted, it's already gone through all of the checking and the calculations. So it runs on the mobile device in the Pepperi app, of course. It also works on the Pepperi mobile storefront if you're using the B2B self-service ordering. And right now, it does not work on the web storefront if you are using B2B ordering for self-service for your customers, but it will run on the new Pepperi web storefront, which we call Storefront 2.0. You've probably all heard, we announced that we're going to release soon a new updated storefront that puts the buyer's self-service experience on par with the mobile device experience. All the features that are available on the iOS, on the Android app, will be available on the web for ordering through the web storefront for self-service for your buyers. So the rule engine will work there as well. So any logic, any business logic or calculations will automatically run there. Okay, I wanted to show you an overview, just a list of the examples I'll show today. I'm just going to read them without any explanation. We'll go deeply into each one today. The first example I'll show is how to use the business rule to write business rules that check order totals. Order total could refer to a discount threshold, for example. If a customer purchases between, $800 to $1,000, you want to give them a little push and you want to pop up a notification maybe and say, hey, if you buy, over 1,000, you'll get another discount. So you can check their total and decide, do I want to display a notification? Do I want to allow them to continue the order more items based on a discount threshold you may have for them? I'll show how to do that. Another order total that can be checked is a minimum order amount. Do you have minimum order amounts? Maybe you even have minimum order amounts per customer type. Smaller customers maybe can order less, while larger customers have a larger minimum order amount. And if the order is not above this minimum, you want to notify and even block the order. We'll show exactly how to do that example. Next, I'll show examples using shipping cost calculations, how to add the shipping cost based on two different types of calculations, one on the grand total amount and on the account type. So I'll show an example of, say, you have customers that if they order, they're large customers, if they order more than $5,000, they'll get free shipping. If they order between $500 and $1,000, they have a certain amount added for the shipping. If they order over $1,000 to $2,000, you have ranges of totals for each customer type. You may have, customers that get shipping rewards, customers that don't have those rewards because they're smaller. So you can base it on those two factors and then automatically add a shipping calculation. The second example I'll show for shipping cost calculation is based on the total quantity of the items ordered. I'll show how you can add a shipping item automatically to the shopping cart that will multiply the shipping unit cost based on the quantity of items that's ordered. The last couple of examples will be examples that actually use data from user-defined tables. So the first one, I'll show how to load data with account-specific item pricing based on quantities. This is price tiers based on customer-specific price tiers. So we'll query the user-defined table data. We'll get the price per particular item for each item in the shopping cart based on the quantity that was ordered per customer. Next, we'll load a user-defined table data with something called dynamic drop-down menu values. You can have a drop-down menu. As you know, we have custom fields in Pepperi that you can add a drop-down menu for the customer to select, for the customer or the sales rep to select a payment method, to select a warehouse, to select a shipping company, and you may not want all the values there to be available for all customers. So you can segment which values appear for which customer by loading this user-defined table data. I'll also show you how to view errors when you're loading the user-defined table data so you can fix your errors. Lastly, an example that I won't show actually in effect on the product, but I will show in the presentation and talk about, are more complex scripted using JavaScript special offer rules that were done by Pepperi services. These have dozens and dozens, sometimes hundreds of advanced custom fields and complicated calculations. They could take, several months to implement. But just so you know, just so you're aware that the sky is the limit with the business rules. Okay? So those are the examples I'll show today. A couple of overview slides to show you what we will be doing before we actually go into the product and do it. So like we said, how are the business rules actually embedded into Pepperi? So what you need to do is actually create what are called advanced custom fields. These are the custom fields that are not static, rather they are calculated custom fields that you write logic, JavaScript. They're Boolean rules that return a true or false value. They're fields that query the user-defined table data and know how to parse the values based on an internal delimiter and get the data. These are custom fields that know how to sum up a column in the shopping cart and give you the total. All of these types of advanced custom fields are available for you to use in your business rule calculation. Once you created an advanced custom field that does a calculation, you then want to set the value of one of the fields in the shopping cart or in the header, the order header, based on these calculated fields. So what you're doing is you're replacing a value that Pepperi automatically calculates on its own with your own business logic calculation. Just like the examples I said, the shipping, instead of the regular grand total, you're doing a calculation and you're modifying the grand total with your own calculated advanced custom field. And again, the user-defined table data plays a role because you can query values from data that you upload in simple format of a main key, a secondary key, and a value. I wanted to show you just one example of this is the example we'll upload in a few minutes. So you have the main key, which is, in this case, is the account ID. You have a secondary key, which is the item code. And then I have the values, which are separated, in this case, with a tilde. The tilde is the internal delimiter of this CSV file. So the regular delimiter is a comma, and then I have this tilde defined as my internal delimiter. I'll show you where you can define the internal delimiter in the ERP configuration settings. So this is what an actual user-defined table looks like. These values could be absolutely anything that you need, a key, a secondary key, and a value. Okay, so once you wrote those rules, you wrote those calculated fields, how do I make them run? How do I put them into effect in the product? That's done through the workflow of the transaction type. For each transaction, you have your own, each transaction has its own workflow, and you're used to, in your workflow, you know that an email gets sent out with a copy of the order, and a file could be exported to your ERP. So this is yet another type of action that exists in the transaction workflow, which is called validate rule. So what happens is you can create as many rules as you want, and then you can decide which ones should be validated at the time of the submission of the transaction, because the rule validation is kicked off by the submit button on the transaction. Okay, a couple of tips I wanted to give is when you're going to be working on your accounts, creating rules for testing, do them on the admin profile. So just have a dedicated transaction type that you create, like a test transaction type, and make it available just for the admin, and then you can do all the tests that you want. You can log in on a mobile device as the admin and test it there. Another tip is to evaluate the custom fields to make sure the rule's working correctly. I'm not going to explain that now. I'll just show it to you later. And then if you are using the Pepperi B2B storefront, when storefront 2.0 comes out, it'll be really easy to test your rules on a browser because you don't need a mobile device in front of you and you don't have to synchronize. So just a little tip there that you will be able to test your rules on the new web storefront. Okay, now finally for the live examples. Okay, I don't see any questions in the meantime, so I guess we're doing okay. Okay, first example, we're going to check the order total. So I told you that I showed two options there. We're going to check the order total to see if it falls within a discount threshold and display a notification. So let's take a look here at the Pepperi back office. Here I am in my Pepperi back office under my transaction types. Okay, all of the configuration, the creation of these advanced custom fields, it all takes place in the transaction types. You will edit the transaction type that you want to create the fields, these advanced custom fields, these calculated fields for. So I have a transaction here called price tier order. That's the one I'm going to work on. So let's edit that one. And in the Fields tab, many of you are probably familiar with the custom fields area over here. These are all of the standard Pepperi fields, the transaction ID, the status, the creation date, the finance fields, the account ID, the account name, and so forth. So all of these are the standard Pepperi fields, and over here you have the custom fields. The custom fields for a transaction are divided into two types. One is the general transaction custom fields, and one is the custom transaction line item fields. The difference is a line item field refers to a specific, to each and every line within the order, while a regular transaction custom, a custom transaction field refers to the general order header. So if you're doing a calculation that you need to run on the price of each item or the units quantity of each item or the percentage discount of each item, you're going to have to create your custom fields under transaction line item fields. If you're doing a calculation on general order fields like the order total, you're doing a custom transaction field. Now, before you start using the rule engine, you are only exposed and only familiar to this button add custom field, which is the static custom field. I have a text field, I have a string, I have an integer, any kind of custom drop-down menu, checkbox, whatever it is that I want to load static data into. Now that you will start using the rule engine, you'll be exposed to what's called an advanced custom field. Advanced custom fields come in a few different flavors. Like I showed you in the slide, you have the calculated real numbers, a calculated integer, and a Boolean evaluation. And then I'm just going to skip here to the sum transaction lines. This is a calculated field that goes through one of the columns, any column that you indicate from the shopping cart, and actually sums up the numerical. It has to be a numerical value column, right? It can't sum up the brand name of the item. It has to sum a numeric, some kind of total, discount, price, quantity. So you have the option to calculate either real numbers, integers, return a true or false check value, and sum up the transaction lines. The other four types are data that you're querying from a user-defined table, and that's the example we'll do at the end. But I just wanted to go through the list with you so you can see what kinds of calculations you can do. Now, how do you know which one to use? It depends on what kind of value you need to return. If you need to return a real number, a price of $4.59, you'll do a calculated real number. If you need to return a quantity of 7 or 11, you'll do a calculated integer. And if you need to return just true or false, like this grand total is less than the minimum order amount, yes or no. Okay, so that is the example that we'll be doing right now. So I'm not going to create the field because I already have it here created. It's called discount threshold. Okay, yeah, that's the example, the first example. Does it fall within a discount threshold? Okay, let me click on the custom transaction fields. I added an advanced custom field of type calculated Boolean, because what I want to do, I'm going to edit this field so you can see how to add it. It's a Boolean rule. This means I'm running a check, a logical check, and I'm returning a value of true or false. What I'm doing is I'm evaluating, is my subtotal after the item discount, the subtotal on my order, is it between 800 and 1,000? If it isn't, then the rule drops and no notification will be displayed. If it is, the next step will be to set up a notification. But first, let's look how I write this rule. This formula was written in the editor. When you click on Edit, you come to the actual configuration interface of the rules. This is it. This is the actual place where you write the logic. So you have the operands. Operands are the fields within Pepperi that you will use in your evaluation. You have numerical values that you can add, and you have operators, evaluators, and Boolean operators, the or and, the logical operators. Using a combination of all of these, you can create a formula. So if you wanted to check, okay, is my subtotal greater than 800 but still less than 1,000, you need to add the operands subtotal. So you click on plus for operands. Now it's already selected, it's already added, but once you click on plus, you'll see all of the Pepperi fields in the transaction, and you have to go and find the field that you need for your formula. So here I actually used subtotal after item discount. You can use the regular subtotal. It depends if you want to do this check before discounts are applied or after discounts are applied. Actually, it makes even more sense in this case to use the subtotal before the discount is applied, because you will apply the discount only if the customer goes over $1,000. That's the rule. The rule is checking if I'm between 800 and 1,000. Let's pop up a notification that says, hey, you're very close to your $1,000 discount threshold. Order just a little bit more, and you'll get a discount. Okay, so it makes more sense even to use the subtotal field before I apply the discount, right? So that's the field I want to use. So I'm going to click OK. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this, and let's just rewrite the rule from scratch. Okay. Okay, so insert your formula here. So I'm going to say a value of 800 is less than my subtotal, which is less than a value of 1,000. Okay, that's the formula. That's the evaluation. We have an evaluate button here. So what you can do is you can click on evaluate, and then for every operand that you have in your formula, it will ask you to enter a value. So if I put the value here of 400 and I run the rule. Okay, so let's do it this way. Let's add an and. And let's write it in a bit of a different way. We'll say if the subtotal is greater than 800 and the subtotal is less than 1,000. Okay, so you need to use the AND operator. Thank you, Lior, for pointing that out. Okay, so we checked if two conditions. The subtotal has to be greater than 800 and it has to be less than 1,000. And then I put in an evaluation value of 3,000, I'm going to get false. But if I put a value of 900, I will get true. If I get true for the evaluation of this rule, what happens is the next step is to configure the validation of this rule to have a notification pop up. So I'm going to save this rule. Okay, I'm going to save it here. And that's it. That's my rule. It's a simple rule. The next step, like I told you, what needs to be done is to go to the workflows and add the action of actually validating that rule. Under the actions, when the order is submitted, you have validate rule as one of the actions. Just like you have email, export file, or update the account stock or the inventory, you have validate rule. So when I add validate rule, so what I see is this, all of the rules that I created. The one I just created is called discount threshold. So I need to click on plus. I already have a rule here that I'm already validating. I click on plus, and that rule will now be validated when I'm in the shopping cart. When the rule is validated and the result is true, the text message that you type here into the name of the rule in the layout is the text message that will be displayed on the iPad, on the mobile device. So I can type, for example, I can display a message, your order is really close to your discount threshold, order over $1,000 and get an additional discount. Now I have the option of making this a notification only, right? Or if I don't check off notify only, then what happens on the iPad is the order will be blocked. I will not be able to submit the order. I will be stuck on this message until I start increasing my order size to 1,000. Only then will I be able to submit. But I don't want to force the customer to increase their order. The discount is up to them. So I'm going to make it a notify only. Now when I save this, okay, let's go to my iPad and you'll see it all come together and pop up on the shopping cart. So my iPad is here. I'm going to synchronize because I added that rule for my to be validated for my transaction type, for the price tier transaction type. Okay, and now I'll create just an order from a customer using the price tier order transaction type where the rule is set to be validated. And Now I'm in the new order center. You can see it looks much cleaner, nicer design. The filters are white. You can immediately tell it's different, and you know you're in the new order center. So I'm going to add some items here. Let's go to the shopping cart here. Okay, so before I even hit submit, I can see my total is just almost close to 800. So I'll add some quantities here. I'll add a couple of more items here. Let's say to get I want my total to be between 800 and 1,000 so that my rule will be validated. Still not there. Need just a little bit more. I don't want it to go over 1,000. Okay, so you see my total now is 824. I'm going to submit this order, and there's my notification. Your order is really close to your discount threshold. Order over $1,000 and get an additional discount. You can see here I have both the cancel button, which allows me to go back and, if I want, add more items to my order to go over 1,000, or I have the submit button that I can submit the order anyway. I don't have to go and add more items. If I did not check that notify only button over here, then I would not have the submit button. I would only have a cancel button. See? Here I check the notify only button. That means I have a submit button here. But if I did not check it off, I would have to cancel and go back and order until I reached over 1,000, and only then would I be able to submit. I would submit here, and then my order would go through. Okay, so I'm going to cancel. I can add more items to go over $1,000. So, okay, I see a question here. Does the validation also work in the order center without submitting? No, the validation works on the order total, which is available only in the workflow upon submission. Unless I'm mistaken, Lior or Diogo, can you evaluate the order total while you're in the order center and have the notification pop up before the shopping cart? I really don't think so, but if any of you want to add something about that, please go ahead.
No, you have to, at the moment you have to click the submit button.
Right. Okay. So it has to be done in the shopping cart. You have to go into the shopping cart, hit submit, and then everything gets validated. Okay. Let's continue to the next order check that I wanted to show as an example. This was an advanced custom field that's going to check if the order has gone above a minimum order amount. So again, it's an advanced custom field under the transaction field. It's not a line item field because it's referring to a general order field. And here I have one that I created called order minimum. It's also a Boolean. It returns a true or false value just based on if the subtotal is less than the minimum order amount. The minimum order amount is $500. So if it's less than that, then a notification will pop up. If it's greater than 500, nothing happens. The order gets submitted. So again, you go and add a Boolean rule. You have the same thing. You edit the formula. You add the subtotal as your operand, and then you do less than the value of 500. Okay, so you can obviously you can evaluate it. If I have 600, then the rule is false. If I have 499, the rule is going to be true. Okay, so that's the same exact kind of advanced custom field, the same exact process of validating it in the workflow. So you go back to the workflow, and then I actually already have it in the validation. It didn't pop up before because my order was over 500, but here I have added it here. It's called the order minimum, and I changed the text to say you have not reached the order minimum amount of $500. Please continue ordering. Thank you. And this one is not notify only. Unlike this one, which was notify only, this one will block the order because it's a minimum order amount. It's something that has to be enforced. Now let's go back to the ordering. And what I'm going to do in this order is I'll just I'll delete this item, so maybe my total will go below. Okay, my total is not yet below 500. Okay. Okay, my total here now is way below 500. Oops. My total is $72. So now when I submit this order, you'll get the notification you have not reached the order minimum amount of $500. Please continue ordering. And I do not have the submit option. I have to cancel and continue adding items until I reach 500. Once I reach 500, when I tap submit, the order will go through. Okay, so that is the kind of more simpler advanced custom fields. I started with basic examples where you're just writing a simple Boolean evaluation and popping up notifications, blocking an order as the first example. Okay, so you saw how we can check the discount threshold. You saw how we can check that the order reached a minimum order amount, and if not, we can block it. We validated the rule, and then you saw how the notification pops up on the mobile device. Next example, we'll do two examples with shipping cost calculation. Okay, the first example will calculate shipping cost based on the account type and the grand total amount. So we're going to create a calculated field that checks based on what kind of customer it is. There's different types of customers. There's the general all customers, there's a rewards retail customer, and there's a rewards wholesale grower customer in this example. These customer types are just properties. They have account properties. Each account has a property value of one of these types. What the calculation will do is it will check using JavaScript. It will, based on account property 1, which is this account type, if it's all our customers, if that's the case, and then it goes through a whole bunch of if statements to check the range of the subtotal. If it's less than 100, then the subtotal gets this additional shipping this additional shipping calculation added to it. It's the subtotal times almost 20% plus 12.5. If the subtotal is above 100 and less than 250, then it doesn't have they don't pay the additional 12.5. It's just the 0.1985. If it's between 250 and 500, it goes down a bit to 1925 and so forth, and it gets lower and lower until it's greater than or equal to 5,000. It returns something that's closer to 15 or 16% of the subtotal. Okay, so this is one case for the all customer type. Then there's another case for the rewards retail and another case for the rewards wholesale, and all of these ranges are taken into consideration. Once you calculated the subtotal, the percentage of the subtotal that should be added for the shipping, you then set the transaction grand total field based on this new subtotal plus the shipping calculation. So the subtotal plus whatever was calculated in one of these cases. Let's take a look at how this is done. Here's a different account that I'll show this example on. This rule, this advanced calculation is in my sales order transaction. And it's here in the Fields tab. Okay, now the advanced custom field that I added here is the TSA shipping calculation. This is the switch between all the if and the switch case that you saw. Let's look at that. It's a calculated real number because it's returning, a decimal number as the price of what to add on to the subtotal for the shipping cost. So let's edit that formula. You can see all of the different cases, just like what you saw in the PowerPoint, based on the property 1 of the account, which was one of the operands I added, and then based on the subtotal. These operands, again, you're adding them by clicking on the plus sign and going to account fields, for example, and adding account property 1. That's a property that you mapped from your data into Pepperi, and every account has a value. Either it's a retail rewards, a general customer, or whatever value it got in the data. And then we also need the field subtotal. So that's going to be in the finance fields. We need the subtotal so we can multiply it by the factor to add for shipping. So we add those 2 fields, and then we start running our script to do calculations on those fields using JavaScript. So I'm switching between all the different cases of account property 1, whether it's all our customers or rewards retail or rewards wholesale grower. And they each have their own terms for shipping. You see the wholesale grower, for example, less than $100, they pay only $12.5 for shipping, and then they have between $100 and $250, they're paying less than the regular customer, and here, if they're more than $1,000, they pay 0 for shipping. Okay, so they have their own terms for shipping, rewards has their own terms, and all has their own terms. Okay, this is JavaScript that you need to write. Now I want to make a point of I want to point out to you that when you go now to write rules in JavaScript, you will not be able to. Okay, the scripting capability is something that, because it does affect the data on our server, it's not something that's open to everyone. First of all, the rule engine in general is a feature for the ultimate package in Pepperi. So it's something that you need to have opened up for you. You need to contact your account manager. And once you have access to the rule engine, you may be able to do those simple logical calculations like we saw on the order total. But to write JavaScript like this and to be able to edit and enter your own script, you do need to be a support admin user. And that's an access that we have to grant you with a separate username and login to be able to enter this script here. So if you really want to go into this, you want to test this, please contact your account manager at Pepperi, and we can open this up for you. Okay, so once I got this script running correctly, the next field that I need to create is actually a field that takes the additional shipping percentage that was added on depending on the grand total and add it to the subtotal of the order. So I have to create another advanced custom field, which I called total sum, including shipping. I can edit that. I'll edit that to show you how it was created. It's a very simple one. Okay, so it's a calculated real number, very simple, and all it does is it takes those 2 fields and adds them together. Right? This you don't need JavaScripting for. You don't need the advanced editing, which this advanced editing button you'll only see if you're the support admin user logged in, because that takes you to write the JavaScript. The basic using operands and using operators and ands and ors, you have that built in. So I added those 2 operands, right? The subtotal, and for my custom fields, the shipping calculation, and then I took subtotal plus shipping calculation, and that's the total. Obviously, you can evaluate it, right? Okay, so that's the total sum. Now, nothing will show on the iPad as of yet. I created these 2 fields, big deal. So what? I need to take the value of the total sum including shipping, and I have to go to the finance information fields. Those are the fields that have the totals, and I have to go to the grand total field, and I have to replace it, rather than the original grand total that Pepperi calculates, I have to set the value based on my total sum including shipping. Here, all of the custom fields you created that are calculated real numbers will be listed here. Shipping calculation, that's not the one that I want to add, because that's just the shipping. The total sum is the one that added the shipping calculation plus the subtotal, and that's going to be my grand total. Let's take a quick look at how that looks on the iPad. And I'll show you something cool that you can do. It's on my other iPad here. If I just go, first of all, this is my list of customers. Now I can filter them by that class, that customer class that you saw, the rewards or the rewards retail. So if I wanted to, if you wanted to see just say rewards wholesale, for example, see just all of those customers and then select one of those and do the order, you'll see that they will get the shipping calculation based on the 0.19 whatever that is supposed to be added for their sales order. Let's go to their sales order. Okay, excuse this is sample data, so it doesn't have images. I'm going to add a bunch of quantities into my order. Okay, and now when I go to the shopping cart, I'll show you something cool that you can do. Okay, my order total is 493, so that means, you know, we can go back now into that JavaScript and we can check, okay, the order is more than 100 but less than 500, so it multiplied the subtotal by a certain factor, and you can see here that it got the shipping calculation as $94.98. Now you're asking, how did you get that shipping calculation to display here? Because you see there's no other place I can see here how much I paid for shipping. So I know that 493.38 plus 94.98 equals 588.36, right? So this is called the minimized footer field, and it's available in the new order center. I'll show you where you can take the shipping calculation field and stick it there to be displayed in the shopping cart. That's done here in the views and forms. So we have the footer area under views and forms, and you have what's called the minimized footer field, which is exactly this field. It's the field that's displayed on this bar of the footer. This is the minimized footer. So I edit the minimized footer field layout, and I can select, typically you'll see what's displayed here is the grand total by default. Instead of the grand total, I took out the grand total and I added from my custom fields my shipping calculation, which is just the amount that's added for shipping, right? I don't want to add the total including shipping because I already have that. That's my grand total, right? So that's a nice little trick that you can use to add whatever field you want to show. I mean, you can actually show any field there. You can show the account ID number, account shipping name, or what, you know, but this makes a lot of sense. So the customer knows, hey, I paid $94.98 for shipping because I'm a retail grower. So that's my shipping charge. Good question. Is there a limit on the fields in the minimized footer? You know, I actually never added more than one field there, but we can certainly try. Sorry about that. I'll just try it and give you an answer. Okay. Yeah. See, it only shows one field there. For some reason, it's not. It doesn't block you from adding fields here in the configuration, but it only shows. You see, it still only shows the one field. Okay. So, because I guess it has a limited space. It has just this one line, so you can't have more than one field. We probably should block you from adding additional fields there. Yeah, shipping. Yeah, so it'll only show one anyway, so there's no point in showing that. Okay. Okay, so actually Lior pointed out that here in the rule, maybe Lior, do you want to go online and make this comment, please?
Yeah, sure. In this scenario, you'd like to make the calculation on the subtotal, okay? Because but then when you want to set the value to the total sum, add the calculation to the subtotal after discounts. So the total sum will consider your discounts as well.
Okay, so what Lior is saying is that I should have added this field instead, subtotal after discounts, so that the total sum with the shipping will take into account any discounts that may have already been given. Okay, so I'll add the subtotal after discount plus the shipping calculation amount that I calculated based on the original subtotal, and that way any discounts that were given will be already taken into consideration, and to that you will add the shipping. Okay, thank you. I think I actually just repeated what you just said, but thank you. Okay, let's continue to our next examples. Okay, so we talked about the minimized footer field. We learned how to calculate shipping cost based on account type and grand total of the and the subtotal of the order, which is really cool. Next, shipping cost calculation. It's a bit shorter. It's based on the item quantity. So if what happens is an item that is considered that's been loaded to Pepperi called a shipping item is added to the shopping cart automatically, which I'll show you how to do, which is pretty cool. That item is added, and that item has a price associated to it. It's a shipping unit price. This particular item has a price of $10. Every item that you order in the order, the quantity of all the items gets summed up, and then you multiply that shipping item by the total quantity of the items. So if I order 10 items, the item quantity of the shipping item, which is in this case, in this example, there's a shipping item ID 123456, that's the item code. The quantity of that item will be 10 times the cost of $10, so the shipping will be $100. So we multiply the sum of all the items by the cost of this shipping item. Okay, so that's a simple way to set up shipping. Okay, before I show this example, I see a question about line item discounts, and actually I'm going to address, that's going to be one of my examples, giving discounts using the rule engine. You don't have to upload a discount per item in your data. You can use the rule engine to then go through the order line by line and automatically apply discounts from your user-defined table data. Okay, that's my example in the user-defined table data. Okay, so back to the shipping by based on item quantity. Let's take a look at the setup for that. So here I have, hopefully I didn't get logged out of this one. Okay. Again, in my invoice transaction or whatever transaction type you want to apply this calculation for, I go to my Fields tab. And for this example, what I did is I created 3 custom fields. Okay. 2 of them are here in the line item fields. What I did is I automatically add this shipping item into the shopping cart. And actually, you know what, I'll show you how I do that first before we go through the custom fields, because that's done in the settings. I don't know if many of you are aware of this, but in the settings tab of each transaction on the bottom, you have what's called a transaction lines filter. The transaction lines filter filters out items that were entered with quantities in the order center, or any items that are in the catalog in the order center. Which of those items should make the cut, make the filter into the actual shopping cart? Now, to you it sounds obvious. Obviously, any items that I added a quantity in the catalog should be appearing in my shopping cart to be invoiced, correct? And this is actually the default value. Units quantity is not equal to 0. If you all look in your transaction lines filter now for your transactions, you'll see that the default value says any item whose unit quantity is not equal to 0 should appear in the shopping cart. Okay? You may have a business need, a workflow need to to do otherwise. You may want to filter out items that are anything that was ordered below quantity of 10 should not make it to the shopping cart, because those are items that should be filtered out. I have minimum quantity of 10, or any other logic that you want to put here. So the logic that I entered here was, and you can edit this logic here, okay? First of all, let's keep all items with unit quantity greater than or equal to 0. That stays, obviously. Or I have added this or Boolean operator. An item who has the external ID, the item code, equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So no matter what I order, even if I go into my catalog and I order nothing, and I go to my shopping cart, this item will be sitting there. Item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is an item in my Pepperi items that I upload from my ERP, and it has a price of, like I told you, $10. This is a shipping unit item. Okay? How did I get this item external ID in here, if you remember? Operands, I added it in my operands under item fields. I went to item fields and I said, okay, I want the item ID, not the warranty ID, the external ID. Warranty ID, that's an internal unique identifier that Pepperi gives to accounts, to items. That's not to be used in rules. Use the external IDs. That's your ID for the item, your item code. So if my item code equals, I just clicked here on equals under the evaluators, and then put a value of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it should be in the shopping cart. And that item exists in the catalog, so no matter what I do, it will always be there. Okay, so you can, as you can see here in the, here I am in the catalog. I'm not going to add any quantity of items. I'm going to go just to the shopping cart. You see that this shipping item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 appears in the shopping cart. Okay, so that's, and it has a unit price of $10. Right now it has no quantity. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding items to my order. Okay, just to keep it simple, I'll add a quantity of 1 item for each, 1 for each item. I have here 8 items. Now when I go into my shopping cart, the quantity for that shipping item will be 8, because I have a rule that takes, that adds the quantity of all of the items ordered except for the shipping item, because you're not going to pay shipping for a shipping item. So you need to deduct the shipping item from the count, and I'll show you how I did that. And then sums up all the other item quantities, and that becomes the quantity of this shipping item. So the shipping cost here is a line item in the actual order. And this could be very convenient if you need to export this order back to your ERP. It's something that you need to as a line item in your order, and not just like the example we saw before where it just modified the total without adding an item to the shopping cart. Okay, so it's 2 totally different examples of how to add shipping. Let's now go to the fields, and I'll show you how I did that sum of all of the unit quantities there. Okay, so what I did here is we have a custom field of a calculated real number. It's an advanced custom field that calculates. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm calculating a new item quantity. I'm taking my formula also has some JavaScript in it. It's saying if the item code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, return 0. The item quantity should be 0 for the sum. The sum of all the items should not include item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if the item code is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then return the unit quantity that was entered in the catalog. So this is what the little script looks like. If the item external ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, return 0, else return this TSA new quantity selector. This new quantity selector, this is actually a custom quantity selector that I created. It's a custom field, and I put it in my order center, in my catalog. So when you are adding quantities to the order in the catalog here on the iPad, when I added these quantities, this is not the standard Pepperi unit quantity field. This is a custom quantity selector field that I added because I need the quantities that are added in the catalog to be separate from the unit quantity value that Pepperi is calculating by default, because I need to be able to run this kind of script where I'm saying do not count item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the shipping item as a quantity of item in the order. Even though it's a line item in the cart, it should not be counted as an item. Return 0, otherwise return the quantity that was entered in the catalog for the item. So all of these items have a quantity of 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It will return 1, then run the script again. It will check, is this item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? No, okay, I'll return 1. Is this item 1, 2, 3, 4, 6? I'll return 1. And so it keeps returning 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. It goes through every single line in the cart and returns the values. Now I need something to sum up these values, right? So I'm returning all these values and now I need to sum them up. To sum up all of the quantities of the line items in the order, I need to use a general transaction field, a custom field, because it's something that sums up something from the entire order. It's not running line by line. It's taking values that were returned and summing them up. So I have to add a field called sum transaction lines. Remember, I told you this is a type of field that could take any one of the columns in the shopping cart, whether it's unit quantity, unit price, item price. See, I have here in the shopping cart quantity, unit price, total price. I can sum up any one of these columns. So I just indicate sum transaction lines, and I indicate which value to sum. So I'm going to sum the TSA item quantity. That's the one that was counting line by line the quantity that I need to add together to get the value that the shipping item will be multiplied by. Once I have that sum, I need to set that sum as the quantity for my shipping item. So then I go back to my line items and I go to TSA final F, TSA F item quantity. I called it F item quantity. I created this custom field. It's my final item quantity, F item quantity. The TSA prefix is hard-coded. You can't change it. It's automatically added. Like when you give a name to a custom field, the field API name is automatically generated and it gets a prefix of TSA. If you choose to export this field to your ERP, this is the API name that it will be exported with and that you can import it into your ERP with. Okay, so then what I did to make the value of the quantity of the shipping item over here, I had to make this value, I had to set this unit quantity to 8. I took the sum item quantity field from the transaction custom fields, and I returned that as the unit quantity for item 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Else, for all the other items, I just returned the regular quantity that was entered in the catalog. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually assigning this sum of all of the items except for the shipping item as the quantity for the shipping item. So I summed up, there are 9 lines here, but I did not count the shipping item because remember the shipping item I returned 0 for its quantity, and then I summed up all the quantities and got the number 8. And this is where I set the transaction sum item quantity as the number 8 for the quantity for this item. And otherwise, for all the other items, it should just be left as 1, which was the original quantity that was entered. And then, automatically, when this quantity becomes 8, it gets multiplied by the shipping unit price of $10, and $80 gets added to the order for shipping. So you can see here how you can add shipping as a line item in your catalog, and you also learned how to use the transaction lines filter to automatically add any item ID that you want to the shopping cart automatically. Example number 3 are rules with user-defined table data. We have one example with tiered pricing that's based on quantities per customer. So I'm going to go into detail about this example first, and then I'll talk about the drop-down menu example. Okay, the first example. Okay, let's go into the right account here. Let's take a look at my user-defined table CSV file. Okay, I have a CSV file here, and it has an ID, it has a main key, it has a secondary key, and it has values. Okay, what the information here in plain English, what is it saying? It's saying I have this file called price by customer. and I have a column that has my customer IDs. This is account ID number 1000, okay? Account ID 1001, 1002, and so forth. My next column has secondary key, has item codes. So for account 1000, for item code HT002, I have price tiers. These price tiers are indicated by quantities that are ordered. If I order a quantity of 1, I'll pay $28 for this item. If I order a quantity of 5 or above, I'll pay $26. Price goes down. If I order a quantity of 15, I'll pay even less, $20.50. For the next item, I have another price tier. For 1, 2, 3, or 4, I'll pay 16. Once I hit 5 and above, I'll pay 14. And once I hit 20, I'll pay $9.50. So prices are going down as quantities are going up. And this is not only for, this isn't for everyone. This is only for account ID 1000. For account ID 1001, I have a bit of a different price tier. 1 still costs 28, but 5 goes even lower to $25.50, and 15 goes even lower to $20, not $20.50. Okay, so each account has their own price tiers for the items. How do I get Pepperi to query this data to get the values that it needs to set the pricing in the shopping cart? Okay, let's go to the account and take a look. Okay, so again, this is in my price tier order, and it's in the fields section. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create fields for every one of the options in my user-defined table. So what kind of fields will I create? I'm going to create integer fields from defined data and real number fields from user-defined tables. Remember, I showed you in the beginning that the advanced custom fields that you create can gain a value by querying your user-defined table data. Okay, so you can query that user-defined table data and parse the values and say, okay, the first value pair here, the first value pair is 1 and 28. The next value pair is 5 and 26. The next value pair is 15 and 20, right? So it's a quantity and a price, a quantity and a price. And in between each number, I have a tilde. So first, I have to define to Pepperi. I'll show it actually on this account. Under my ERP integration configuration area, what is the delimiter between each one of my values? And here in my example, it's a tilde. So I go to configuration, I go to the internal delimiter fields, and I set it to a tilde because my CSV delimiter is a comma, right? But my internal delimiter, within each comma separated field, I have tilde separated values. So that's where I set the fact that the tilde separates them. Okay, so I set the tilde, and now I want to upload, before I show you the fields, I'll upload that table of data. So I'm going to go to configuration files, to user-defined tables. And here I have my tables of data that I'm loading, and user-defined table data can also be automatically loaded to Pepperi in your ERP integration, right? If you think about it, the data is constantly updated, right? You constantly have new pricing tiers. You're going to be updating those files. So you want to, you can transfer it through your ERP integration. What I'm going to show you now is loading the file manually. Okay, so let's go to add a user-defined table. I already have one here that I'm going to edit. It's the one that's called price by customer. And in the definition, I give it a name. Okay, price by customer, and this is the same name that should appear in my user-defined table here in the ID, the map data external ID column, price by customer. Okay, the main key is my account ID. Okay, and the secondary key is, you can just choose any, because the hard-coded ones here that are available are account ID, catalog name, and sales rep ID, but my secondary key here is actually an item code, which is not one of the options here, so choose any. And we'll further define this when we create the custom field. You'll see it'll make more sense about the secondary key. So I define the table. Now, where's the data? I want to upload my CSV file to this user-defined table that I just created. Okay? To upload the data, you have to go under ERP integration to file upload. If any of you have already uploaded contacts or order history, other CSV files to Pepperi, you know that it's done here through the file upload. If you click on upload and then go to, you have to select API map data. Okay, API map data, that's the name of the object that you're loading. It also has an override and selective override option. This is if override deletes all the existing data for that table and reloads data. So if you are reloading a file, say that's smaller than the one that already exists, and you want to overwrite, you want to delete the values that are already in the system and overwrite with your file, then you would do an overwrite. If you wanted to do a selective overwrite, which is not to delete all the values that are in the system, but only overwrite values that already exist in the data, while keeping values that you did not load in your new file as is, then you would do a selective overwrite. Right now we'll do just a regular map data, load a new file. I'm going to browse to that, I'm going to browse to my file, that map data CSV file. Here I have map data price tiers, that's my CSV file, and it's loading the data and it's completed. Okay, once it's completed, I can check here. I told you I would show you how to look at errors. Errors are here in the failed lines. You can see I had 0 failed lines here, but if I had some errors, for example, in this file, I had 4 lines that failed. So I want to know why. So I would open up on the action, I would export the lines error file, and then I'll be able to see that okay, I had some duplicated lines. My errors were aligned with the same ERP code already exists. The duplicate line was ignored. Okay, so that's how you would view the errors. Anyway, let's get back to the data. Let's go back now to the user-defined tables. I'm going to click on the price by customer that I defined, and here is my data, my main key, my secondary key, and my value. Okay, and it's the external ID. It's price by customer. That's the ID of this table. So as you can see, user-defined table data is freestanding data. It's whatever keys you want, whatever values you want. It's your data. You delimit it. You decide what should appear here. Now we're going to go back to the transaction type, and we're going to use that data to define the pricing per customer type. Okay, are there any limit to the size of the data in the user-defined table? That's an excellent question. The limit is 1,000 lines, but it's not a hard limit, and you can surpass that. If you need to surpass it, then we can do that for you. So, for example, in this kind of file, you would definitely need to surpass it, because if you had, say even if you had 500 items, and you had, say, 200 different accounts. So for each account, you're going to have a row for each item. So that's 500 times 200. That's already 10,000 lines. Okay, but we can surpass the 1,000 line limit for you. If you went in right now by yourself and tried to load, you would hit that limit. Go ahead. Lior, please go. Wanted to make a comment. Go ahead.
Yes, sure. So concerning the limit, as you've seen, we have 3 default values for the main key. It's the account, the sales rep, and the catalog. If you choose the main key and the secondary key with the default, you have no limit, because then we know how to load them only when we need them. So the user experience will be great throughout working with the app. When you're using your data, freestanding data that is not related to any of these fields, then we'll limit you, because then we load everything at the same time. Okay? So yeah, this is the difference. If you use the main key with one of these fields, we know to load the data for the specific account only when you enter this account on the app. So to maintain the user experience on the app, so it won't be, you know.
Yeah, like you saw when I chose any and any, which means I'm not using any Pepperi fields. My main key is whatever, some kind of field that I have in my ERP that's not related to Pepperi accounts or items or codes or anything, and my secondary key is some other strange field, then I will be limited to 1,000 lines because we will need to load all of the lines. And that's, yeah, that's exactly what Lior said. Thank you. Okay, so now let's go back to the transaction type, and I will show you how I queried that data and use those values. Okay, so we'll do this a bit quicker. I go now into fields that you're familiar with. I go to the line item custom fields because the pricing is for each item on a line. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a custom field that queries every delimited value in that user-defined table. So I'm going to set 3 integers, which are the quantities, right? Quantity 1, 2, and 3, because I have a price tier that it has 3 levels. You might have a price tier with 6 levels, with 5 levels, and that just means you'll have additional values here. Like you might have an additional delimiter tilde with quantity, 50, and then another price of $19, and then quantity 100 with another price of $18, and so forth, okay? I have just 3 price tiers. So I had set an integer from my defined table data for each quantity. So Pepperi knows to go and query the value and take columns starting from 0 to however many columns that you have. So let's look again at my data. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns of data delimited by 5 tildes. So my first column is called column 0. As you know from programming, in array, the first column is 0, second column is 1, third column is 2, and so forth. So what I'm going to fill in for an integer field from a defined table, because an integer is a quantity. It's 1, it's 5, it's 15, it's 20. It's not a decimal number. I'm going to call it quantity 1. The field API name is automatically filled in. And I'm going to query, I have to tell Pepperi which table to query. It's the price by customer table, right? That was the ID of the table. And here I'm going to define the main key is the transaction account external ID, right? I select from all the different fields of the transaction to say that it's the account ID. And the secondary key is the item ID. And the column I want to query for quantity 1 is column 0. Next, I have quantity 2. I'm querying the same table data. It's an integer from a user-defined table, and everything is the same, except I called it quantity 2, and I'm querying from column 2, right, because it's the third column of my data. 1, 2, 3. See the third column here, 5 is the third column of my data, so it's column 0, 1, 2. And then quantity 3 is going to be from column 4 of my data. So I did the same thing. I'm not going to show it, but it's the same thing for quantity 3. Then I did the same thing for the prices. So what I'm doing is I'm just parsing out the data into quantities, 3 quantities, and 3 prices. The prices are not integers. That's the only difference. They're real numbers because they're decimal numbers. So I created 3 real numbers from defined table. I called them price 1, price 2, and price 3. And then it's the same user-defined table object, the same main key and secondary key, just the column number is different. This time, price 1 is queried from column 1. Price 2 is queried from column 3. The 14 is column 3. And price 3 is queried from column 5. Okay? So Pepperi knows how to parse the data, how to use the tilde as the internal delimiter. Once I have these quantities and prices parsed, it's very easy to create a calculated field that calculates the final tier price. I called it final tier price. It's a calculated real number because it's a price. And what it does, let's edit this JavaScript. what it does is it returns the unit price, which is the Pepperi field, which I took from the operands, the unit price. It checks if the unit quantity in Pepperi is greater than or equal to the quantity 1, which was queried from the data, then return price 1. If it's greater than or equal to quantity 2, then return price 2. And if it's greater than or equal to quantity 3, then return price 3. And you can evaluate the rule, you can put in the prices, you can put in some quantities, you can put in the regular unit price, the regular quantity, and see what the result will be. Okay, I won't do it now to save time, but this is the script for the rule, and it's just using those quantities 1, 2, and 3, and using price 1, price 2, and price 3, which are queried from user-defined tables, and then I set a variable called ret. Ret will return the Pepperi unit price, and ret will be set based on the quantity of the unit quantity ordered for that item. So now Pepperi is going to go through each item in my order. Let's take a look on my iPad. And actually, you know what? Instead of showing you this example on my iPad, I'm going to show it to you on the new web storefront. So you guys got a little preview in the web storefront. To see the new web storefront, which is in beta right now. It's just, I'm showing it to you on a browser instead of having to go and sync my device to check the rule. And you got a little privilege to see a preview of the new web storefront because you came to the webinar. Okay, and another question is the user-defined table calculation happening in the order chart in the shopping cart or also in the order center? It's happening in the shopping cart because in the shopping cart is when the pricing is evaluated. Maybe Diogo or Lior, you want to say a word about that? Can the prices be adjusted based on the price tiers when you're in the catalog in the order center, or does it have to be only in the shopping cart?
In the new order center, you can add all the cart fields. You can add them in the order center, but as of now, you cannot edit them. So to edit stuff, you'll have to do it in the cart.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so here is the new web storefront. We're very excited about it. It's in beta right now, but I wanted to show you how it really looks like the app experience. You can customize the home screen like on the app. You have the shortcut. You have branding. So let's go into my price tier order. I'm going to place an order from my catalog. I'm going to add the items. By the way, I'm only going to add the items that are in my user-defined table data because all the other items don't have prices because I didn't enter their pricing in the price tiers, right? You saw I only had these 3 items, and I only had it defined for like 3 or 4 of my customers. You would have to have it defined for all your items, for all your customers. Okay, I'm going to go to the shopping cart. Now, here are the prices. You can see this is a buyer who's from customer ID 1000. And as you can see by the data, customer ID 1000, sorry, I'll get rid of those changes, has special pricing for items HT0, 2, 3, and 4. So when I'm going to change the quantities, you'll see the pricing will change accordingly. So here I'm going to go up to quantity 20 here, and you can see the price. Sorry, I think I need to go higher. Okay, the price goes down. The quantity went up, the price went down to $3.40. For item HT03, I think I was at quantity 15. The price goes down to $14. At quantity, let's say 100, the price goes down even more to $9.50. Quantity 5, the price goes down to $26. Quantity 200 goes down to $20.50. That turned red because it's out of stock. Okay, so I have the alert set for being out of stock. So you can see in the shopping cart of the storefront 2.0, you got a little preview of what's about to come out. The next example was creating dynamic drop-down menu values. to define for each customer, for example, what kind of payment method they can use. So you can dynamically define what should be in that drop-down. So let's take a look right on the iPad what the drop-down looks like. Okay, so here I am in the shopping cart, and in my order header, in the order details, when I click on these three buttons here, I get to the order details, and I have a drop-down here that's telling my customer, choose from available payment method options. Available payment method options, and then I open up the drop-down, and it tells me cash, check, and credit card. Now, this data came from this user-defined table here. See, I'm right now account 1000, and account 1000, I loaded another ID number, I created another user-defined table called payment method by customer, and for each customer, I have a line with the customer ID and a secondary key, which is a kind of value, cash, credit card, check. This customer has all three options. Customer 1002 has cash only. Okay, if I were to switch now on my iPad, right now I'm customer 1000. See, customer 1000. I'm going to switch now and go to be customer 1002, and you'll see that only cash will come up. Okay. So how did I set this up in Pepperi? I created an advanced custom field which queries the user-defined table to get the drop-down menu values. That's all. So instead of getting values for pricing tiers, I'm getting values for a drop-down menu. Okay, here's account 1002. If we go into the order details, here I'll go into an existing order I have there, and I'll go to the order details. We'll open up the payment method option, and it will say only cash. You see? Okay, just like is indicated here, 1002 has cash only. Okay? All right, so I'll show you quickly how I created those fields and in the back office. The drop-down menu field is a general transaction field. It's not per line item, it's for the whole order header. And it's here. It's method of payment that is allowed. And the type of field it is user-defined table drop-down. So I gave it a name, method of payment allowed, and then I defined, okay, from which table of user-defined data am I querying? So it's obviously, it's not the price by customer, it's another table that I added called payment method by customer, right? That's the table I just showed you, which has the key of the account ID, it has cash, check, or credit card. And the main key is the account ID. Okay, so that's all. That's how I created that field. And then I took that field and I went to my views and forms. I went to my order header and I added it to in the sales rep view or the admin view or whichever profile. I just made sure that that field is added to the available payment method. I renamed it as available payment method options. And also just to make it look nice, I added a splitter, which is just a text field above it, and I wrote choose from available payment method options. And the final result of that looks just like this on the iPad. I have the splitter choose from available payment method options, and I have the available payment method options drop down, and the values are not hard-coded. They're not a standard custom field where you hard-code the values. They're being queried from a user-defined table. Okay, so that is the second example. I see a question here. Are advanced custom fields also planned for the accounts to make validations, creating them? Okay, yes, you can definitely validate fields on accounts. That's part of the new workflow that we released because you can't run rules on the account creation form. So, but you can use our new workflows to validate fields that are on the account creation form. So, for example, you want to check, for example, the zip code or the street name or the account, so any account information the sales rep adds when he creates a new account on the iPad, right, on his device. And you want to validate that information. So you can write your own scripts and stuff validating that through workflows. the new workflows that we released. In those workflows, rather than using the basic account creation form, you use a custom account creation form that's HTML that you write that can query like Google Maps and look up zip codes and things like that. We're actually doing a webinar on the new workflows next month. That's the next webinar in the series, and it will show you how to create that custom form to validate account fields. By the way, since you mentioned it and you brought it up, you can write rules like this for activities as well, not just orders, not just transactions. So if you have like some kind of a field in an activity form, in a visit report, or any kind of CRM, you know, the custom forms that you can create in Pepperi. So you can run checks on those fields using these kinds of rules, logic or JavaScript, okay? But as far as account creation, that's a completely separate entity from activities and from transactions, and you need to use the new workflows with the custom forms where you're completely replacing the basic Pepperi form with a custom form that will pop up that you can validate fields on. Okay, I hope that was a clear answer, and please come next month to the workflow webinar. Okay, so those are my examples. We are finished with my examples. I told you I would mention just kind of higher complexity examples that require Pepperi services, services that we sell at a fee, that we provide you with a scope of work contract and so forth, for much more complex rules, more complex requirements as far as dynamic special offers that run an analysis on the shopping cart, and then here is an example that's described. You can see dozens and dozens of advanced custom fields and calculations. This is something that Diogo, who's on the line with us, implemented for a customer where they had categories of products that were ordered, and the cart was analyzed to determine how many products were ordered from each category, and based on that, what special offers should be provided to the customer, and they would select bonus items from dynamic drop-down menus. Okay, so that's a very complicated thing that you can do. Another complicated example that Diogo also implemented, and I think Liora also, is real-time approvals from a manager using the rule engine. Codes, like kind of password codes, are generated using Java that are sent back and forth between a sales rep and a manager to get approval real-time at the time of the order for certain discount percentages that the sales rep wants to give a customer. So he can give a certain percentage, but once he goes above that, the rule engine kicks in and starts asking him for manager approval and notifies the manager, who sends him a unique generated code. Okay, so you can imagine how complex that is as opposed to something like checking the order total and popping up notifications. So really the range is very wide. So that's it from my side of the presentation. Just a couple of tips for you to take a look at for homework. You know, you might want to talk to your management, find out what kind of services you have in your companies, programmers that can help you to implement these rules. And like I said, if you need the rule engine capability opened, you should contact your Pepperi account manager. You may have some hardware requirement to take into consideration, because if you're running some heavy rules, you need to make sure you're using an iPad with like 2 gigabytes of memory, or an Android device with 3 gigabytes of memory, because all this stuff is downloaded and it does run offline. I'll wait to see if more questions come up in the questions panel. I did want to notify you that as soon as this webinar is over, a evaluation survey of the webinar will come up. So if you could take really just 30 seconds, 60 seconds to just fill in click on a couple of buttons, it'll help us and me especially prepare better webinars for you in the future, because we are starting this webinar series of more deep down, drill down into more complex features. So please take a minute to fill in that survey. It'll pop up in your browser when I end the webinar. If you don't have time to do it now, then it will also be emailed to you. So if you fill it in the browser, you're done. Otherwise, you'll get it by email. I don't see questions, too many questions popping up. At this point, I really want to thank Lior and Diogo for taking the time to spend and kind of being here with me on the webinar throughout the whole time and listening to your questions. I'm sure they also learned something from your questions. They're very involved, very experienced project managers. Thank you so much for being here. Let's just take another minute or two to see if people have additional questions on the presentation. And of course, you'll all get a link to the recording. Okay, I see a small comment here that Diogo made that I didn't see before. The question about the 1,000 row limit on the user-defined table data. So again, if you don't have the keys defined, right, if you're just loading columns of data with your own information, right, freestanding information, it's not related to a Pepperi field, then you are limited to 1,000 rows. But if you do have keys defined, that 1,000 row limit can be surpassed. And we have a customer today with more than 500,000 lines in their user-defined table. Okay. Thank you for that, Diogo. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions coming up, so it's okay. I see a question. At the moment, we're using all of our rules in the classic order center. You want them to be supported in the near future, as we are not able to just switch to the new order center because all reps need to change this manually. Okay, I see. You don't want to switch to the new order center, and you want the rules to stay supported in the old order, in the classic order center. I know that we're releasing a version soon of the app for iOS, for the iPads, that I think it will slowly, automatically transfer customers slowly to the new order center. We're not doing it for all of our customers at once. I don't know if, Lior, do you want to address Marco on that question, if the rules will continue to be supported in the old order center, if they don't switch over?
Yes, it's a two-part answer. First, most of the rules and the user-defined values you showed, they fully work on the old order center, which most of our customers use. Once we will release officially the new order center, you'll have the control to move and migrate all your users to the new order center, of course after you configured everything and tested it, and then they won't have the flag, the option, or they will, if you want them to have the option, to go back to the old order center. So you'll have the control to remove, automatically remove that switch for the reps. So you essentially you can force them all to move to the new order center. You can give them the control, or you can keep it as it is.
Great.
Of course. At the end, the end process will be that we'll retire the old order center, because all the new features we're developing now are being developed for the new order center, like the cart filter that Merav showed.
Yeah, there are actually most of the things I showed will work on the old order center. You're correct. So this has been a record-long webinar, I think, almost 2 hours of full attention and really wonderful attendance. Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope that this will help you in your business productivity, and please continue to join our product education webinar series. You will get emails. You already have an email with the future dates, but you will get reminders. Have a good evening or afternoon wherever you may be located in the world, and thanks again for joining. Bye-bye.